This is Detroit's Morning Answer with John Anthony on FM 92.7 and AM 1400. The Answer.
Charlie Kirk did not deserve to be assassinated. But I'm overwhelmed seeing the flags of the United States of America at half-staff calling this nation to honor and venerate a man who was an unapologetic racist and spent all of his life sowing seeds of division and hate into this land. And hearing people with selective rage who were mad about Charlie Kirk but didn't give a damn about Melissa Hortman and her husband when they were shot down in their home tell me I ought to have compassion for the death of a man who had no respect for my own life. I am sorry, but there's nowhere in Bible where we are taught to honor evil. And how you die does not redeem how you lived. You do not become a hero in your death when you are a weapon of the enemy in your life. I can abhor the violence that took your life, but I don't have to celebrate how you chose to live. I am overwhelmed.
Wow. That was a message by Howard Wesley from the pulpits of a church. This is where we are, America. And this is why I wanted Lucas Miles. Lucas Miles is not just an author. He's a voice crying out against the cultural collapse we see happening in America. As senior director of Turning Point USA Faith, he is on the front lines of equipping Christians to stand strong in an age of compromise. His new book, Pagan Threat, Confronting America's Godless Uprising, with a foreword by Charlie Kirk, shines a spotlight on the spiritual battle beneath today's political and cultural debates. Lucas warns that paganism is no longer hiding in the shadows. It's standing on the stage and demanding our worship. Today, we'll unpack how this threat shows up not only in government, media, and education, but even, as you just heard, from some pulpits. And then we'll also discuss the aftermath of Charlie's assassination and what it reveals about the depth of the battle we face. Lucas Miles, welcome to the Detroit's Morning Answer.
Hey, thanks for having me on. It's good to be with you.
It's so good. You know, before we get into your book, and I mean, you just heard that audio coming from a man of the cloth. You hear the rhetoric that sounds more like hate than truth. Do you see this as evidence of that pagan influence within the church itself, which you speak of in your book?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when people hear the word pagan, they think of Odin or Thor or some sort of, Greek or Norse god. But I think that paganism is coming in differently today. This new form of paganism is first and foremost a self-deification. What that means is that we are putting ourselves in a place of God, that we get to decide what life matters. We get to decide when life starts in the womb. We get to decide what gender we're going to be or what sex we're going to be, that we get to be that sort of God. And then, you have a man who's supposed to be a pastor preaching the full counsel of the Word of God, who's actually, speaking against the life of another. I don't even want to see this happen to my worst enemy.
Yes.
What happened to my friend Charlie Kirk. It's disgusting to hear that kind of rhetoric from a pastor.
Now, Lucas, what drove you to write Pagan Threat, Confronting America's Godless Uprising?
Yeah. So I've written a couple books on the infiltration of Marxist ideology into the church and into Christianity. And, this seemed like kind of the progression. So although these books are not direct sequels, in my mind they are related. So my previous book, Woke Jesus, what we've seen is that wokeism has evolved. And Christianity, although it was a good short-term vehicle for progressive thought or Marxist ideology, it's not a good long-term vehicle, because if you say you're a progressive Christian for long enough, you'll either push more into Marxism and deconstruct from your faith, or you will push more into Christianity and realize that Marxism is antithetical to the gospel. So it doesn't last long. But if you're a Marxist pagan or a Marxist witch or a Marxist, atheist in some form, or a radical environmentalist, those things can coexist for a really long time. And Marxism, the parasite that it is, becomes more sustainable in that framework.
When I saw the title, Pagan, I said to myself, why the word pagan? What does it capture that secularism or godlessness doesn't?
Yeah, great question. So I think that what we're seeing here, I think especially to this younger generation, and Charlie, who was a dear friend, he was my friend even before he was my boss, and I missed him dearly, but he understood this better than anybody, and he was confronting this more than anybody.
Yeah.
What has happened, when we see paganism, it's not that just all of a sudden, people are just waking up and saying, I want to join the occult, or I want to become a witch. It's that there's specific powers that be. There's a Marxist agenda to push on media, entertainment, dark places on the internet, TikTok lives, all these sorts of things, to start supplanting the Western, values that we have and the Christian framework of our society, because Marxism can't thrive in a Christian America. And so what it has to do is it has to push Christian America to the side. And the only way to do that is to give some other sort of spiritual placeholder there that people can grab a hold of and find hope and power and life, or at least attempt to. And so it's using different forms of paganism to basically confuse the populace, especially the younger generation, lead them into this, and then it becomes easier to get them to evolve and agree with Marxist ideology, because they no longer have the rigidity of Christian morals preventing them from accepting it.
Yeah, and the greatest thing about the Bible, it forewarned us, 2 Timothy 3, 1-5. But understand this, that in the last days there will come times of difficulty, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, and having the appearance of godliness, but not denying its power. Avoid such people. That's exactly where we are today, Lucas Miles. Am I wrong?
I think you're absolutely right. I think we're seeing that. I mean, this is definitely what feels like a very biblical moment that we are in. It's a historic time, and I think that that's only been accentuated further through the tragic events of now 13 days ago with the assassination of my friend. We are in a time where people see life as not mattering. They get to decide who lives, who dies. There is a delusion that has come over people, and within the younger generation. Now, Charlie Kirk loved the younger generation. He had great hope for them, and we're going to continue that hope. Here at TPSA Faith, we are seeing an explosion of just a ground surge of interest, since Charlie's assassination. And we really, I have hope right now for America, for, in a way that I haven't in a really long time. But that does not mean that the battle's done. There's still a lot of ideological issues that we have to address, that we have to continue, Charlie's legacy and fight in. My hope is that this book, Pagan Threat, is able to play a small part in that as we push back, these areas that I think that the enemy has won within people's minds, and then we start to expose, these deceptions.
And, when I think about how I knew Charlie, we weren't best of friends, but I'm from Illinois, and I ran into him from time to time. He helped my daughter when my daughter was at Olivet Nazarene, looking to get it become a part of Turning Point USA. And I don't know if you recall Oz Hillsman's 7 Mountains teachings, but Charlie was in all 7: religion, family, education, government, media, arts and entertainment, and business. He literally set that up. And now that I know you were a part of that. I mean, when you think about the legacy of Charlie Kirk, you hear what this preacher said. You hear what people are saying. But I'm also finding that a lot of people, once they go back and see the full context of what Charlie has been saying throughout the years, they pivot from, I hate this man, he's a racist, to, wait a minute, he challenged narratives. What do you think will be the true legacy of Charlie Kirk?
First off, thank you for saying that. I think Don Jr. said it really well the other night at the memorial, and I was there at the memorial, and it was such a moving time. Is that Don said that, look, he's the only person you could think of. He's got one of the largest microphones in the nation, and yet he gives his time, hours, to his opponents ideologically to be able to share their perspectives. He heard people out. He listened to them. He engaged with them. He promoted discourse among, even though there was a chasm of ideological differences. And Charlie, though, I think beyond all of that, he's going to be remembered for his Christian faith. He died a martyr. Jesus was the foundation, the backbone of everything that he did. He believed in equality for all men. He believed that in things like personal responsibility that Jesus taught. He believed in scriptures. He taught a foundation of justice, rooted in biblical law. Charlie loved this nation. He loved the world. He loved his family. But most of all, he loved Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior.
History shows us that when paganism rises, violence against truth tellers often follows. Do you see Charlie's death in that light?
Charlie is a truth teller, and was a truth teller. And the beautiful thing is that he's more alive than ever. He's with the Lord. But there is just an evil agenda that when it's happened from when Cain killed Abel, it's been going on since then. Is that when somebody exposes something in you that you don't like, there's this vileness of ego that when taken to the extreme, it will seek to silence at all costs those around it, that reminds it of its own deficiencies. Charlie Kirk was not trying to shame people. He was trying to bring them to their knees at the foot of the cross to realize that we're all depraved before the Lord. There's a chasm of sin that we need to, that we have to try to find a way across. And the only way across is the bridge, of the cross of Jesus Christ. So, look, this is a monumental time for this nation. Revival is moving. Churches need to recognize that, take advantage of that right now. It's easier to share the gospel today than ever before. Paganism, godlessness, it is a threat to this nation, but it cannot stop the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I don't know if you can witness the power of the gospel, forgiveness at Charlie Kirk Memorial. It is probably one of the best that I've read thus far as it relates to what the impact that Charlie Kirk's life not only had, but will have in the upcoming future, because 58-some thousand people now reaching out wanting to start a TPUSA chapter. That speaks to the volume of who he was, correct?
The impact from this moment, and it's so. It's hard to talk about because I love Charlie dearly. I love his family dearly. It was the honor of my life to serve him for a year and a half as the senior director at TPUSA Faith, and I'm going to continue on in that role and to really help Charlie's vision come to pass and serve the American church in that way. The movement that's happening on the other side of this, nobody could have predicted. Yes. I don't even know, Charlie, if you would have asked him and said, do you think that all of America is going to stop, the day that you leave this earth, and that everybody's going to come together in unity? I don't think he could have seen that fully. I don't even know if he realized. He knew he was big and that everybody, a lot of people knew him.
Yeah.
I don't think he realized he was this big. And, he's become an icon. And it's not just because of his, of who he was as a person. It's because who he pointed to.
Yes.
And I think that's the remarkable thing about Charlie.
Oh, I love that statement. I got a two-part question for you, because when you look at this culture and faith, where do you see this pagan uprising most vividly today? Is it government, media, schools, or the church? And how does paganism disguise itself in culture so people don't realize they're embracing it?
Well, you mentioned earlier that, how much time Charlie had spent kind of, working in these different areas, from, the schools to the churches to, government, et cetera. And I think that the enemy works very similarly. And so, paganism is creeping into all these different areas. And it's specifically what we're seeing is that there's a Marxist infiltration. And that's been the goal of Marxists. And you can read about that in the book, The Naked Communist, written, 60, 70 years ago now, whatever it was. And so the attack is on all fronts. And so, for instance, in the church, we see things like the Enneagram. Mm-hmm. A lot of churches have embraced this as like a personality profile or a spiritual gift test, not knowing that it's rooted in what's known as automatic writing, which is the founder of it says that he had a spirit guide that showed him each of these personality profiles. And he's obviously not a Christian, and it was rooted in the demonic. And so churches should have nothing to do with this, but yet there's Christian pastors who are Enneagram coaches. That's paganism coming into the church. We have Christians that are using sage to clean their houses. Yeah. Basically, I have to cleanse the evil spirits from my house. That's witchcraft. Yeah. I think that there's a lot of these sorts of areas that are happening. You look at some of the shows that are being, put in front of kids that are kind of, promoting, wizardry, witchcraft, these sorts of things. It's all this soft introduction to get them away from a Christian worldview, start opening their minds up beyond things, of kind of a biblical worldview. And that makes them a little bit more susceptible when they start pushing an agenda like abortion, or they start pushing an agenda like Marxism, or, even, globalism or something like that, because now they don't have these Christian anchor points to be able to, come up in their spirits. They know that's not for me.
Wow. As senior director of TPUSA Faith, how are young Christians processing Charlie's death, and how do you see them stepping up in this moment?
For 13 days now, I have done virtually nothing besides media and texting people or messaging people on social media. I have had such an overwhelming response. I mean, people I've never, I haven't heard from in 20 years, people I haven't heard from ever before in my life are reaching out to me. And I'm not the only one receiving this. Everybody at Turning Point is receiving messages like this. It is an all-out, nonstop, surge of people saying, how can I help? How can I get involved? There are people out there, though, that still have this vileness in their heart. They've been twisted by these false ideologies, and you see them spouting online hateful things. Are we still talking about this? Yeah. Or who's next? This sort of rhetoric, and it's disgusting. But they're a product of the environment that they were brought up in. They're a product of the indoctrination of the school systems, their lack of parenting. All these sorts of things that have contributed to this, the trauma that they've had. This generation has gone through an immense amount of trauma. Yes. When you look at everything from September 11th to school shootings to the isolation during COVID. Yes. There's a trauma in this generation, and that has caused them to, react in one or two ways. They're either pushing in more to their faith, and we're seeing a tremendous revival right now among Gen Z, or they're going the opposite direction. They're becoming more cynical. They're becoming more isolated. They're becoming more hateful. And we see that kind of, dichotomy between, just within this generation. I think Charlie understood that. That's why he wanted to give place for some of the healing to happen on campuses, to talk through these ideas, for them to be heard. He understood the importance of this generation just being heard and having a place where they could talk. And there's a great loss from this earth by his passing on multiple different levels. Yes. But it's more important than ever that I think that, we take time to listen to this generation, but also to challenge this generation with truth. It's going to take grace and truth to win this ideological war.
And Charlie was a master, and he put on master classes on that. What is the single most urgent message you want readers to take away from Pagan Threat, and how can people get your book and connect with TPUSA Faith?
Awesome. Yeah, so a couple things on that. So first off, in the book Pagan Threat, Confronting America's Godless Uprising, I put out a 7-step plan for Christians, for parents, for church leaders, conservatives of all kinds, on how do we battle kind of this ideological front that we're on right now. How do we push back and confront these pagan lies, these godless lies, these Marxist lies? And so I think it's very important that we wrap our minds around that. Without a strategy, and Charlie was the best strategist there was, without a strategy, it's really difficult to go forward in any sort of winning capacity. So that, although God wins in the end, it doesn't mean the church in America always thrives. The church in Europe fell, and the church in America could fall too if we don't have a strategy and a plan moving forward. If people want to get the book, they can go to wherever books are sold, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, ChristianBooks.com. I will warn you that there are about 15 different fraudulent versions of the book that have popped up on Amazon. People trying to kind of spoof the cover. They're using my name. They're using the title in some capacity. Look for the hardback from Humanix Books. It's been like number 3 to 6 all week on Amazon overall, number 1 in multiple categories. It's got a foreword from Charlie Kirk, so make sure you have all those. It's sold out a couple times, so they're replenishing it all the time.
Good.
So don't worry if it says it's going to take a little bit of time. They're replenishing it. It's coming a lot faster than what they're saying on there. But make sure to pick up a copy and head to tpusafaith.com to connect with our team, find a church near you, and just to support the fight for this generation and do it for Charlie.
Lucas Mao, I also do a Saturday show. I'm going to reach out to your team to try to get you on that show because I deal with a lot more of the cultural issues of our time. And I would love to get into it with you with what some of our founding fathers like John Jay and John Adams and Patrick Henry and how they spoke about this nation and how the founding of it. It wasn't by religionists. It was about people who were pointing people to Jesus Christ. And especially John Adams. Our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. I would love to get into it with you with some of those quotes. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Love it. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's Lucas Miles. He's author of Pagan Threat, Confronting America's Godless Uprising. He's the senior director of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point USA Faith. Go out and get his books wherever good books are sold. And please reach out to TP USA Faith because we're going to need it now more than ever. We really are. I really appreciated him joining us, Paul. That guy is amazing. That's what we do here on Detroit's Morning Answer. We bring people who are going to speak the truth. We bring truth tellers on here. Stuart Rose was one earlier, and Lucas Miles. Go get his book, folks. Pagan Threat. We'll be right back.